Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Excalibur Data Systems Roundtable Tech Talk. I am Mike Fuson, and I'm joined today by Will Barrows from CG4. Will, thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Mike.
It's always great to jump in and talk about asset tracking and talk about CG4 and how it brings additional capabilities to any organization. And we've, on a lot of our calls with customers recently, we've been talking about the difference between RFID scanning and barcode scanning. Now, for many of you out there, we've all had experience with barcode scanning because we've all been to the store. And everything there is scanned via its barcode or the UPC label that is generally on all of the things so they can figure out what we're buying and how much it costs. However, RFID is something that is newer. I don't want to say new because it's been around for a little bit, but is newer and certainly gaining momentum as we look at asset tracking. So, Will, talk to me about the differences between barcode scanning and RFID scanning.
Well, a good analogy that seems to make sense to people is when you're talking about barcode versus RFID, it's kind of like if you've got a rifle and you're trying to shoot a can off the fence post down there, you know right what you're shooting at and you pull the trigger and you hopefully knock the can off. Well, RFID is like if you're shooting skeet and you got that clay pigeon flying through the air, you take your shotgun, put it in that general direction, and then it hits. It has a better chance of hitting it because you're getting a cone-shaped effort to try to get that hit. And so, what similar for barcode and RFID?
Well, and I think we've seen this. I want to say piloted in certain stores where you could walk around with a scanner and scan each item as you put it into your cart. But in other cases, you put all your stuff in your cart and you kind of walk up and it scans the whole cart at once. And they're using RFID tags in that particular case of all of the items that are put into that cart where it can pick it up all at one shot. The IT analogy I kind of look at as we've talked to various use cases, a common use case of the difference would be, do we go to a rack that has a whole bunch of equipment in it? Some of it's in the front of the rack, some of it's in the back of the rack, some of it's on the bottom, and we want to determine everything that's in that rack. Well, we can go barcode by barcode, asset tag by asset tag label on everything, or using the RFID scanner, it'll scan the entire rack all in one shot because it'll pick up all of those RFID signals in that rack. And there are special scanners that are required to do RFID, correct?
Yeah, here, let me just grab this one here and show you. This is my favorite one. This one is, it's got a keypad on it. It's got a screen. It runs the Android operating system. It's made by Zebra. And this one has an RFID antenna on the end of it, but it's also got this regular barcode scanner on the front edge of that. And the nice thing about this scanner is you can do either one, because there are some times when you want to scan an individual barcode, but there's other times, like you say, where you want to scan the whole cart or the whole rack and speed up your inventory process.
And you're not limited when we talk about tags. So an RFID tag is really what we would see in a typical barcode asset tag. It just has some electronics that sit behind it to enable the RFID capability. But it still has, I think I've always heard you say, it's got the human readable. So our eyeballs can read that it's, asset tag 1234 XYZ, and then the barcode that corresponds to that human readable and the RFID stuff that sits behind that is then readable, same information, via the RFID scanner.
Right, and so that way you have the best of all worlds, and the barcode scanning sometimes is the appropriate way to update the asset, but you have the ability to update it in bulk with RFID when needed.
Yeah, and a number of projects that we've worked on recently are clients that are putting RFID antennas around a doorway, for example, in and out of the server room. And so if equipment is being removed from the server room and it passes through that doorway, it's going to grab all of the equipment that's on that cart, or what have you, whatever they're using to move that equipment. We can grab all of that at once as it passes through that doorway without having to individually scan. But you may have a situation in a server rack where you're moving a one-use server from rack 1 to rack 3, and you want to just scan that one device to update its location of where it is in the rack, even down to the to the U space within that rack, depending upon how we've got our CG4 set up. But really, we're talking about these tags and how they're used, and so RFID doesn't cover every circumstance, nor does barcodes. You could have all barcodes on, but you may have to get pretty Gumby-like to scan some of those barcodes, depending upon where something sits in a rack. So we've seen clients use kind of an amalgam of the two to serve particular purposes, and make it a little bit easier. Because I can imagine you could RFID tag everything, and if you were doing an inventory of a particular area, being able to move the scanner around from an antenna perspective to pick up everything within that room, within the distance. How close do you need to be for the scanner to work? I know with the door antennas, it's picking up, it's creating a whole portal, invisible portal you're kind of going through, and they're in different positions to ensure nothing can sneak by. But when you're using the scanner, does it have to be kind of close, or can you do it from a little bit of a distance?
Well, these are good things to keep in mind, because with barcodes, it's pretty clear that you're usually going to be within a couple of feet of the barcode. So, but with RFID, it's more of an art. You need to allow for the use cases when if you're using fixed RFID through a portal, that you have enough antennas and they're well positioned so that they get reads of all of the RFID tags. But with the mobile and that's generally speaking, the technicians will fine tune that just to make sure that everything is reading as it goes through the door. For mobile reading, it can vary depending on the environment. And so if you have a clean, pristine view, electronic view to the RFID tag from the scanner, I've been able to get up to 30 feet sometimes in some of my testing. But in normal office environments, and let's say that the RFID tag is on a laptop or something like that, in that range of 4 feet to 12 feet is pretty normal.
So you'd have the ability with the scenario I described to kind of go around a room where stuff may be on the desk, as an example. You kind of know that general area, go around, but you don't have to be standing on top of it to get it. But you can't necessarily be across the parking lot either, trying to see what's in the building.
Right. And some of the customers say that they have situations where there's an office that has say a glass window, and they can inventory through without going into the office. Like maybe someone's having a meeting in there, or maybe it's locked because someone's gone for the day. You can do an inventory that way and get some of the assets in that office. And then if you're in a stock room, you can just walk in, and if it's a not too big of a stock room, you can just go in, stand in the middle, and just kind of pull the trigger and kind of move around and make sure that you get everything and accomplish it pretty quickly.
Right, and then being able to partner that with the traditional barcode scanning, where you want to be much more distinct. I only want to get this one device is the one that we're dealing with. And I know we've talked about, you showed the big scanner And those are, a device you're investing in. There's an Android operating system and all sorts of stuff. But if you're doing barcode scanning, there are little Bluetooth enabled scanners that could be paired, for example, with the cell phone rather than trying to use the camera on it, which all of us have done QR codes, and you're trying to figure out, get it just right, where we can use a handheld device that's paired with it that can do a more distinct scan. You see the little red laser come out and grab what you're looking for from those devices. And we've talked about those, those use cases where you might want to scan an entire rack or an entire room, versus I want to distinctly go through. I'm going to check out a loaner device to someone, and I want to do the one device that I'm checking out and not have to pull some gigantic thing out to scan the one device. I could. There's nothing that's going to stop me from doing it. But that Zebra you showed does both. I think it's flipping a switch, as I've heard you describe in the past, and I can be doing barcode scanning using the laser in it.
Yep, this one it happens to be a toggle setting on the screen where you say I want to do RFID versus I want to do barcode, and so that that allows you to flip back and forth, because like you were just saying, you may be checking out a piece of equipment to a person. You don't want to check out 30 things to that employee. You're saying I want to check out this one item, and then when they check it back in, you can check that one item back in, versus accidentally doing an RFID read, and maybe you're checking out equipment that's sitting over there on the next person's desk or something like that.
Now, how does the RFID antenna do its signal? Can you use different antennas, some that are more directional versus broader? Are there different antenna types that are available?
Good question. So these RFID scanners, they are the one that I showed you just now. This particular antenna that sits on the end here, this is made for more of the longer distance reading, and it's, if you think of an ice cream cone, it's more of a narrow cone of reading. And then they also have models where it's more of a wider cone, so you don't have to maybe point it quite as much. It's reading a wider cone of RFID tags, but the wider the cone, the shorter the distance it'll read. And so my preference is, it's just like any tool. I mean, if I get a tool that's got more power, I might be able to get a few more things done or a little quicker. And so I generally go to the longer distance one, and then just know that I'm going to have to move it around maybe a little bit more, but I won't have to maybe move into the far corner of the office to get everything read. I can do it more from the center location.
Mm-hmm. So it's really looking at how you're using it and what you're doing with it.
Right. Just one other thing to mention is that these scanners, you can modify. It's a setting on the scanner to modify the power of the RFID antenna. And so, you can adjust it to maximize the power, or, reduce it down a little bit to particularly fit your use case.
Or a particular location's use case.
Yes.
As it were, for what you're trying to do and how you're doing. So, yeah, it's amazing how this technology just continues to change and continues to adapt. I think back to not all that many years ago, and I think I probably have one sitting here in a box somewhere, and I'm pretty sure it's a Zebra little handheld scanner that you'd plug into the big 5-pin keyboard ports on, going back to like PS2 days, right? And it came with a little splitter, so you could plug your keyboard in and you could plug that scanner in. It was on a coily cord. When we were, very early in and being able to use the barcode scanning technology, and everybody gets amazed by this. But one of the things we always remind them is that a barcode scanner is essentially a keyboard you don't type on. All it's doing is reading that data in and typing it for you. It's about that efficiency. I mean, imagine, all of us have been to the store and you've got that produce that they have to punch in, right? There's not a scan for it. They've got to punch in the code for the limes that you're buying, and their weight. And then everything else just goes zip, 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 through the scanner. And that's exactly what we're looking at here. The technology is the same in stuff we're exposed to every day. Most of us just don't really think about it. We're just so used to it. And it's leveraging this technology, as we've talked about so many times, to increase your efficiency and increase your accuracy, because it's not going to misread and it's not going to mistype whatever it is that it's scanning. And you've talked about scenarios where you're scanning a location, you're going to do an inventory in a location, and people will put a barcode label up that has the location on it to be able to scan that in quickly, and get all the location details the way they need to be, to then begin scanning their inventory, be able to do an inventory that used to take hours in minutes, and have 100% accuracy of everything that's been scanned, where before you went in with your clipboard and your piece of paper, your form, and you wrote everything down, and hopefully that zero is a zero and not a big a capital O, or it's not the letter I, it's number one. Those little things that especially as we've gotten older and our glasses have gotten thicker,
Right.
it's sometimes hard to tell what it is that you're looking at. My wife was teasing me yesterday as I was working on something at home, and I went like this to be able to make sure what I was seeing was right. And she said, I think you need to go see the optometrist again to possibly have a little adjustment.
Yeah, it's a never-ending battle.
Well, and these things, the things that we're tracking, we're trying to track more things, right? Because some of the technological implements that we're using are getting expensive. Where somebody before may have said, we're not worried about tracking all the little webcams that everybody has because they're a $50 part. Well, you may have some folks that have a $200, $300, or in a conference room a $500 or $1,000 webcam that's in that thing, and that is being tracked, and finance wants to know about it. And so, what it gives us the ability to do, when we look at it really from an asset tracking perspective, we can track anything we want to track. We've talked in our previous episodes about tracking furniture, even, or other things if we want to put a tag on it. And being able to use the RFID tags expands our capabilities to do that. But I know one of the things that we collaboratively work with customers on is understanding what the use cases are, what the needs are, and what sort of tags may be appropriate for what sort of devices, based on how they want to function and what they want to do. And I'm sure before you or I retire, things will change yet again, and there'll be whatever the new thing is that's out there. But this technology is proven and very reliable, and it's neat to watch it happen. In fact, one of the things I was laughing about as we've looked at the different scanners and we've done demonstrations together. Take a trip out and get a tour of an Amazon warehouse. You'll see this stuff everywhere. Mm-hmm. How do they get their packages to you so quickly? They're leveraging this same technology to do the logistics of getting this stuff moved around. And so we're using the same technique. Everybody, I want to do it the way Amazon does it. Well, you will be. Let's get CG4 into your environment and you'll be doing the same things, using the same technology to have that same accuracy and efficiency. So it's always exciting to talk about this stuff.
It is.
Well, thank you for joining. Yeah, thanks for joining me today. And
it's really interesting and always to talk with you, Mike.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's always fun. Yeah. Join us again for another episode as we explore the CG4 and asset tracking. ExcaliburData.com is our website. Go out there. You can learn about CG4. Reach out to our team, and we'll be happy to get you connected with Will and the team at CG4. And together we can talk about how CG4 can make a difference for your organization. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.